Hey guys, I'm just kind of getting the TikTok stream together. Okay, so we're locked in now, and this is a good episode right now to jump in. You guys know I've been liking to do kind of a mythology study like right during the middle of the day, just to kind of catch you if it's like your lunchtime, your break time. I don't know if you're even just going to the bathroom, but I thought, man, let's just kind of go through Kemetic belief systems, right? And this is a great story because this is a story about the conception of Heru. And Heru is an amazingly, significant figure in Kemetic beliefs. But this gives us really a good chance to talk about Set, Nephthys, Asar, and Set, and Anubis in a way. And you can see them all kind of lined up in that image. So I'm gonna get right into it. I'm just letting some time go for a few people to kind of get in here and join us, and we're gonna have a good session of talking about some mythology here. And we're starting off with one of the stories I think is really ancient, but not necessarily talked about as much as it should. But again, I be on all mythology, so I think it should all be talked about. But this is one of my favorite stories because this is really a flex on Aset. Now, if you remember the story, what we're going into is this is after Osiris or Asar has already been murdered by Set. So that wound's already happened, right? So we're past the grieving. We're past the point where they scattered all of his body parts all over the world, and it was Aset and Nephthys who went about collecting all those body parts, right? That's what they did. And then this is what comes next, and this is by far one of the most significant things. It's a resurrection ritual that they perform. Well, it's not even a resurrection. It was a spark ritual because he doesn't come fully back to life. They're able to get him enough life into him that they can perform the deed and consummate a son, essentially. So he creates his son from beyond the dead or beyond the living world, and then he goes to be the king of the underworld. So let's get right into it. It's a brilliant story, and let's kind of check it out. Let's check out the myth here.
Night does not fall. It is invoked. The marsh breathes low and wet, reeds whispering like witnesses afraid to testify. This place has no name, only purpose. A threshold between worlds, chosen because the dead can hear the living here. At the center of the warded circle lies Osiris. Asar. Broken once. King no longer. God only by memory. His body is bound in linen marked with sigils older than the throne of Egypt itself. Each wrapping is a sentence. Each knot is a command. Over him kneels Anubis. Silent, precise, unemotional, not because he does not care, but because care would ruin the work. This body must hold. Not forever. Not even long. Just long enough. Anubis finishes the final seal and steps back. The ritual space is now stable. Barely. Barely. Beyond the veil of reeds, something moves. Storm without rain. Heat without fire. Set is searching. He does not know where they are, but he knows what they are trying to do.
So again, Set understands the significance of this and the power of his two sisters, or his sister and his sister wife, Aset or Isis and Nephthys. So he knows what's going on. He intentionally destroyed his brother. It wasn't even a cold-blooded. It was a cold-blooded murder, right? Because he had planned all this stuff out. So he knew he needed to get rid of Asar, so that he can get his time in the sun. So this is crucial for him. So he knows they're trying to do something sneaky, and he wants to suppress that entire line. Because remember, at this point, Asar and Aset had not consummated their marriage in the traditional sense. So there was no lineage. So again, this is a lineage story. This is a rulership story. Why Set is so insistent.
He does not know where they are, but he knows what they are trying to do. And it terrifies him. Nephthys stands at the perimeter. She does not raise a weapon. She raises confusion. Her voice fractures into the night, lamentation, grief, prayer, nonsense. Sound that bends direction. Sound that makes hunters walk in circles. Shadows cling to her like loyal animals. If Set breaches the ward,
this will matter later because in these stories, both Aset and Nephthys are defined as being among the most powerful magic wielders in the Kemetic belief system. That's where they are at their height, right? Like what, the Kemetic magic, and we're seeing that. Now, Set, of course, is known as one of the most powerful physical forces. He is the storm, and you see in the story, they kind of like cast him as a storm, or they define him as a storm. The heat from the storm, the desert heat. That's who he is, and that's what they're trying to resist. Long enough that they can consummate this, this process. This, get the child conceived.
if Set breaches the ward, Nephthys will not fight him. She will mislead him until the world itself forgets which way is forward. Inside the circle, Isis begins the spell. Orzit. She does not cry. Tears come later. Her magic is not loud. It is deliberate. Each word spoken in reverse of how it was first learned, undoing death syllable by syllable. The air thickens. The body of Osiris responds. Chest rises. Once. Twice. Not life. Permission.
And this will be the important thing, is that she does not bring him back to life. He never comes back to life in the sense of what he had before. So even this entire process, which is an amazing expenditure of energy from two very powerful deities, he still doesn't come back to life. So they don't breach that wall. This is kind of more like a temporary, injunction. That's simply what it was. So he'd come back, handle that family business.
Permission. Osiris opens his eyes. They are not the eyes of a king. They are the eyes of a god who knows this moment is stolen. He says nothing. Neither does Isis. There is no time. This is not love. This is defiance. From death, they draw creation. From a man who no longer belongs to the living, they forge a future Set cannot erase.
And that's the important thing. Now, during this time, the way it's reflected in mythology is that the land is in chaos. Now, this is what Set himself represents. So I'm not sure if this was written, as a warning tale, or if this was inside what the culture was going through at this time, was chaos. But this is what we're told that it represents. So that Heru represents this rejoining of the upper land and the lower land in Kemet. So this time of Set is significantly important because it bears out, among the populace, like who he is, what he does.
From a man who no longer belongs to the living, they forge a future Set cannot erase. Outside the circle, the wind howls. Set is close now. Too close. Nephthys changes the chant. The sound splinters again. The marsh swallows the trail. Inside the ward, the spell crests. Isis completes the union. The moment passes. Osiris exhales. His body stills. The god is gone. The king does not return. But something has begun. Isis staggers, steadying herself against the earth. Her hand presses to her abdomen.
So again, because he's not a living creature, and they don't show any depictions of them engaging in actual sex, That's not what happens when we say they consummate their marriage and conceive. This is a spiritual transfer. Like literally, they're able to bring his energy back long enough that you see him like hover over her. This is the way they depict it in some other myths, where he kind of hovers on her. So this is 100% an immaculate conception. This is why later on we talk about the story of even Jesus Christ and the conception of Jesus Christ, this immaculate conception. This, I believe, is among the first stories that we hear about that, like somebody getting preggers without any like actual sex happening. She can say this, in all reality. This is kind of what happens. Now, there's some conflicting stories about whether they had sex. There's a whole story I'll get into about the myth of these three, Aset, Asar, and Nephthys, kind of engaging in a little bit of, right? Actually, that's prior to this. So maybe it wasn't even that they hadn't consummated, but they certainly have not produced an heir. And this is what she found to be the most important thing: to give him his son.
Her hand presses to her abdomen, not in certainty, but in faith. Anubis lowers his head. He knows. Nephthys silences her voice. The night resumes its ordinary lies. Far away, Set roars in frustration, striking stone where nothing answers back. Isis flees before dawn. She will hide. She will wander. She will raise a child in secrecy.
Now, this is the important part, because there's a couple of different tellings of this story depending on which period and where it's coming from. But in this version, Set never breaches the perimeter. And again, it's important that they're in the marsh areas. Marshes everywhere are considered more of a liminal space. Marshes and swamps are places where kooky stuff happens, and it follows into the mythology here that a lot of stuff around marshes is places where it can go down. In North American belief systems, if you follow like the Inuit, like the Seminole belief system, you get a lot of that talk about operating in these liminal spaces, these spaces that are off the beaten path, these spaces that combine as much, magic or grounding in the real world, but also serve as conduits to the afterlife. So it's not a surprise that they cast a spell there. This is a swamp is kind of a perfect place, or a marsh is kind of a perfect place for, let's bring someone from the afterlife into this world, because in those places, the liminal spaces, that's where you have the most power to be able to do those kind of things. So this is what we get, why she's there, why he's after her, and she'll stay in the marshes because this is her space to fly below the radar on what Set's power is.
She will raise a child in secrecy, strength, and patience. For the one conceived this night is not merely a son. He is a verdict. A judgment still unborn. His name will be Horus. Heru. The god who exists because Set failed.
Now that's very important, because his role obviously is going to be to claim the throne back. Like he makes this claim to that this is how they would reset everything and bring order back to the lands, was through Heru. So he was destined to be this avenging son, and this would spark off a whole series of conflicts between Set, the uncle, and Heru, the nephew, and they would battle. I mean, these would be like off the hook battles. I think like Heru loses an eye, which is restored later. I think Set loses a testicle. Like he attempts to mount him because he wants to show that I'm dominant over. And the easiest way is to wrestle him down in front of a group of people and essentially, grape him. So that also went down. But the story really gets a lot more litigated when we get into the how and the why that Heru comes back and supplants him. It's really a political decision that the rest of the elders come back at. So this is kind of what the story lends it to. It's a significant story in Kemetic history because, and like I said, I think it's the first immaculate conception story that we hear and all the moving parts. So there's a lot of parts that go on with this, and we kind of need to understand like some of the characters. So I did kind of queue up some more information about each of the characters, and let's talk about this. Like I wanted to talk about Osset first. She's the premium one here. She's the powerhouse. So let's kind of learn a little bit about her. Just take a couple of brief moments here, right?
Dossier, Orzit. Supreme Mage of the Kemetic System. Primary name, Isis. Kemetic name, Orzit. Meaning, throne, legitimacy, continuity, rightful succession. She does not sit on the throne. She makes thrones valid. Known names and titles. Core Kemetic titles. Orzit, Lady of the Throne. Were-it Heikau, Great of Magic. She who knows the name. Mistress of Words of Power. Mother of the God. Protector of Kings. Mistress of the House of Life. She who makes the dead speak. Syncretic later titles. Isis Myrionimos, she of 10,000 names. Isis Panthea, the All-Goddess.
You can see, I'll just interrupt it really quickly, but you can see how they break her down, like the names that she gets, right? The Lady of the Throne. And I said, the kind of the rule for this belief system is that she sits behind the throne. She is conceptualized in that way. And they often say that the queen makes the rules, the king enforces the rules. So she has a definitive role in administering the kingdom. And this is what they talk about when they talk about these many names of her.
Isis Panthea, the All-Goddess. Queen of Heaven. Important. These names are not cosmetic. Each reflects a function she absorbed, mastered, or subsumed. Core domain definition. Supreme Mage. Orzit is not the embodiment of Heka. She is the greatest wielder of power outside of Heka itself. This distinction matters. Heka equals cosmic principle. Orzit equals master operator. She does not generate raw force like Ra. She commands outcomes through precision. Power philosophy. How Orzit's power works. Earned, not innate. Learned, not bestowed. Applied, not theoretical. Ritualized, not explosive. Her magic is preparation heavy, knowledge driven, context sensitive, terrifyingly reliable. She is strongest when she has time. She has materials. She understands the system she is manipulating, which is almost always relationship to Ra. Ra versus Orzit. Ra. Older. More powerful in raw output. Cosmic authority by default. Orzit. More adaptable. More curious. More dangerous in practice. Her defining victory. Forcing Ra to reveal his true name, gaining power over him without overthrowing him. This establishes her as not superior by rank.
A very important part of her mythology, a story independent of itself. Ra is always seen as the powerhouse. Clearly, Osset in this moment, when she learns his true name, flips that whole dynamic. Knowing his true name is ultimate power, especially for someone as powerful in magic as she is. So that's no little thing. We would also see the way that they look at Hathor or Heru is that she's also seen of equal power. She was also a sky deity. So again, none of this is to bump Ra down. He plays a different role within this pantheon than anyone else, right? So a lot of times it's not just overall power that rules, it's also context. Who has the power, what they're tasked to do with it, and so forth.
Superior by intelligence and adaptability. She doesn't replace systems. She rewrites how they're accessed. Mythic history. Daughter of earth and sky. Born of Jeb and Nut, Orzit initially exists as royal support. Divine consort. Keeper of continuity. She is important, but not yet dominant. The murder of Osiris. When Osiris is murdered by Set, Auset evolves. She does not appeal to Ra. She does not ask permission. She searches relentlessly, reassembles a god, masters funerary magic.
Now, this is an important part about Auset that distinguishes her, I think, from at least other gods in this pantheon. Probably not other gods in general, but she's the only one who really goes through some suffering, right? Like, I'll talk about the other ones, but like when I compare her to Hathor or Heru, who is all confidence all the time, because she never has a bump in the road. She never has anything that stands in front of her. Even when she goes to being Sekhmet, that just makes it worse, because now she knows no one can stop her because they couldn't. They had to trick her, right? She lost because of trickery, because she likes too much beer. Auset or Isis is very different in that regard, because literally she suffers. She loses her husband through murder. The first god to ever been killed, or at least in that pantheon. They didn't call themselves god, but the first of the Netters to be killed. So she endures that, and endures something that none of the rest of them will ever have to endure, which is losing the life of another deity like yourself. So that's unique. It's also a betrayal by her brother. Set is her brother. So, now he's targeting her, among the more powerful of the Neteru, is now openly an enemy of her, right? And her line. So this is where and then she becomes a mother. And in her motherhood, she's really like the first single mom out there in existence, because he's already dead and she has to bring up this young king without him. Now she relies on community. She relies on Hathor, who gives him her divine milk. She relies on Nephthys, who still has to do this while watching Set over her back, because this is her husband. And she relies on Anpu, or Anubis, which is another interesting character, because he is also depending on the mythology that you believe, he may also be the son of Asar and Nephthys. And this is one of the reasons, so he has a weird relationship with Set. Like, Set still kind of embraces him as a son and never sees adversarial to him. But in this mythology, clearly he's working in alliance with his uncle father. I don't even know how to break it down. But they would go on to have a connection in the underworld. Anubis himself is linked with the underworld. So would Asar or Osiris after this point. So, Asar comes to the underworld, and he's the underworld king, and Anubis takes a role underneath him, right? So it's a lot more kind of family complexity that goes along with looking at these characters. But let's get deeper into this profile on Auset here.
Masters funerary magic. Crosses the boundary between life and death. This is the birth of the supreme mage. The conception of Horus. Auset. Temporarily restores Osiris through ritual. Uses earth-based, funerary, and spoken magic. Conceives Horus. This act violates expectation. Defies Set's victory. Creates a god born from death itself. Osiris does not return, but the future does. Ritual earth alignment. Auset is not cosmic stellar in this rendition. She is marsh-born, temple-trained, grounded in earth, body, breath, and voice. Her power flows through herbs, linen, names, bloodlines, geography, timing. She is strongest on earth, in liminal spaces. She is strongest on earth, in liminal spaces. Marshes, tombs, thresholds, warded sanctuaries. This makes her perfect for ritual thrillers, stealth mythology, sacred espionage, relative power scale, mythic scale, base power 810, Prepared and ritualized, 9.510. Against stronger gods, 910. Long-term impact,
So
1010.
she is among
She may
the
lose
most
moments.
powerful, the way that
She
I
wins
break it
eras.
down. She's the master
Psychological
of
and
magic.
archetypal profile. Adaptive. Patient. Emotionally controlled. Maternal but not soft. Will violate cosmic norms if the outcome preserves balance. She is not chaotic good. She is inevitable order through intelligence. Final dossier classification.
So that's kind of Osset in a nutshell. A very diverse character. Obviously, as Isis, she would be known all over the world. And among the Kemetic belief system, maybe she still is the most well-known. Like, we see commercials of Ra, but within, like, big parts of culture, especially, you know, a lot of women who are exploring their own powers, or women who are about women empowerment. Man, this is a great mythological figure, because she ties into all that stuff there. So this is the part of her that we see. She's very strong. She's both a mother. She's soft enough to be a mother, but she's strong enough to take on the gods. And this is not like, she fights all the way through to get her son Heru placed back on the throne. Right, that's a huge part. And she does some things, you know, relying on relationships, relying on some deception. Right, she gets after it. She does what she has to do. Now, the other part, the person I didn't want to leave out of this, because I feel like she gets overlooked all the time, is Nephthys. And Nephthys, again, is equal in power to Osset. Like, she literally is. So when we talk about, like, the power of these deities, like, Nephthys is someone that we always tend to overlook, but is one of the more powerful. She's kind of in the shadows. But let's kind of break out, like, how she's referred to and named.
Dossier, Nephthys. Mistress of Shadows, Guardian of the Threshold. Primary name, Nephthys. Kemetic name, Nebthet. Meaning, Lady of the House. Not a domestic title. House here means sacred enclosure, temple boundary, threshold space. She rules what is inside but not seen. Known names and titles. Core Kemetic titles. Nebthet, Lady of the House. Mistress of the Threshold. She who guards the night. Protector of the dead. Watcher at the gate. She who conceals the sacred.
Now, those names, Protector of the Dead, she does play a role in the funerary services. So when you wake up, if everything is cool, she may be one of the first figures that you see, because she's here to help you guide through the underworld. So this is what her role is as she's, you know, as you wake up in the underlife. Nephthys is going to be there to help you. She will be a guide. You're probably going to be thirsty. I don't know why, but you will be. And so she carries even sacred water. Imagine a deity of this scale helping a simple person make their transition. That's who Nephthys is.
She who conceals the sacred. Companion of the morning goddess. Funerary and liminal titles. Mistress of Shadows. Guardian of the bier. Voice of lamentation. Keeper of silent paths. Where Osset acts, Nephthys ensures no one interferes. Core domain definition. Liminal authority. Nephthys does not dominate through force or spectacle. Her power exists in borders, transitions, hidden moments, sacred privacy. She governs what is not meant to be seen. If Osset rewrites reality, Nephthys decides who is allowed to witness it. Power philosophy. How Nephthys' power works. Subtle. Passive-aggressive in cosmic terms. Defensive rather than assertive. Environmental rather than confrontational. Her influence manifests as misdirection, silence, delay, confusion, forgotten paths, ritual concealment. She doesn't stop enemies. She makes them miss the moment. Relationship to Set. Set and Nephthys. Wife by title. Opposite by nature.
Yeah, this is important because they got paired together, which is all win for Set. Like, there was nothing in there for her. I'll let her go through this disruptions and we'll talk about it here.
Opposite by nature. Set represents disruption, exposure, force, storm. Nephthys represents concealment, containment, stillness, night. She is not loyal to Set's chaos. She is loyal to cosmic balance through containment.
And this will be important. And on a more personal level, right, she's a mothering creature. And he is a god who is associated with the desert and infertility. So that's already a combination that's not going to work in that pairing. And it bears to be very much true.
She is loyal to cosmic balance through containment. This makes her a traitor only if you think noise is power. Mythic history. Early role. Sister to Orset and Osiris. Wife to Set. Initially positioned at the margins of power. But margins are where thresholds exist. The murder of Osiris. After Osiris' death, Nephthys joins Orset in mourning. Assists in protection and...
Like, Nephthys is the most down sister of all time. She never cares about the spotlight. She's always got your back. I don't know if she's always on time, but she's always there when you call. Like, she's always on time with the assistants. And that's the role that these two sisters have together. And Orset is just as protective as Nephthys is of her. So it's really a great relationship when we talk about how these two are connected.
Assists in protection and concealment. Helps guard the body during reconstruction. She does not lead the ritual. She makes sure it is not interrupted. Role in the conception of Horus. During the restoration of Osiris, Nephthys establishes the perimeter, controls sound, movement, and attention. Uses lamentation as ritual camouflage. Creates false trails for Set. She does not fight. She buys time. Without Nephthys, the ward collapses.
So, yeah, she is very much crucial because Set was on that ass, man. He was tearing things up looking for them, and he could move and travel at the speed of storms, at the speed of wind, at the speed of lightning. So that's how fast he was like going around, and she was just misdirecting him because at any time if he shows up early in that process, we don't get Heru. If we don't get Heru, there may be no one who ever challenges the throne, and we still may be living under the chaos that is a Set administration, ironically.
The ward collapses. Set arrives early. The future never happens. She is the difference between spell cast and spell interrupted. Association with Anubis. Anubis. In several traditions, Nephthys is mother or guardian of Anubis. Shares funerary authority. Oversees transitional rites with him. They form a silent operational pair. Anubis prepares the dead. Nephthys protects the process. Ritual earth alignment. Nephthys is deeply
and that just kind of talks about her role as, you know, in the funerary process. She's listed right there. So you have two major figures in the funerary process that are presented here, and she plays a significant role in what she does, not only in this process here, but in your process. If you're believing, you know, what the belief system says, she's crucial in surviving that. So that's who Nephthys is. We'll continue this.
Nephthys is deeply grounded. Night air. Desert edge. Tomb entrances. Marsh borders. Temple thresholds. Her magic flows through. Silence. Shadow. Breath control. Sound distortion. Spatial misdirection. She is strongest. At night. During rites. At borders of sacred space. Relative power scale. Base power, 710. In liminal spaces, 910. Against stronger gods, 8.510. Strategic impact, 9.510. She will not overpower a god. She will ensure the god arrives too late. Psychological and archetypal profile. Reserved. Observant. Loyal to process, not personalities. Comfortable being unseen. Emotionally restrained but deeply committed. She is not cold. She is focused. Final dossier classification.
And that's a lot. That's essentially Nephthys, kind of in a nutshell, right? We learn who she is. We get some insights on her emotional set. And these two performing like an amazing feat of magic. So I'm going to wrap all this up. I'm going to take the story myth that'll be available on the channel and some story format. And if you guys are into listening to late night mythologies, I think you'll enjoy this. I just kind of do it in a real subtle way. And obviously we're just kind of doing a little time to break down the characters, but all the information here, the story, the dossier files on Nephthys and Offset will be there. And next time we come back, I'll talk a little bit more about Anpu and Heru, and I may do that tomorrow because I don't want to let the story get too far before we start documenting everyone who's in here. So as always, you guys can join the channel. You can check out more of these dossier files if you just want to hear them uninterrupted. I've got that there for you. Appreciate you guys sharing your little lunch or break time right here with me talking about mythology. And I'll be back tomorrow about this time ish, right? Like, you know how it goes with the live stream, but I will be back on at least by tomorrow at the same time if you're into the mythology. I do an earlier segment where I talk about what's in my personal story that I'm writing. So you can check me out early if you want to hear about my own writing. This is where I break down mythology, and later I'll probably break down a couple of popular shows. So I will be back. Thank you as always for stopping in that live on TikTok. You are done, and now I'm